In Victorian times, these 4 acres of walled kitchen gardens were the most labour-intensive of the Heligan estate. The survival of the staff and the Tremaine family who lived in the big house depended on the huge variety of vegetables and fruits they grew here. Philip Macmillan Browse has taken on the role of Victorian head gardener. It's his task to recreate what was grown and how at the turn of the century. The flower garden grew swathes of cut flowers to decorate the big house and produced exotic fruits in its range of glass houses. Restored only 2 years ago, this 19th century garden is unique in Britain.
This is a Paxton house named for Sir Joseph Paxton, of course, who built the Crystal Palace. He had this bright idea in the 1840s that the average house owner, the middle class house owner, should have their own glass houses. So he produced the first kit off-the-shelf glass house. The glass, which was made on a barrel process, was very narrow, so there were lots of glazing bars. And what you didn't want was the water running down the glass alongside the glazing bars, simply because it would cause it to rot more quickly. So that it was cut on this curved fashion, so that on the slope the water runs down the glass, keeping away from the wood, thus preserving it. Very simple piece of kit. You could build it as a lean-to like this one, or you could build it 2 from either side, making a ridge house. It was the very first kit off-the-shelf glass house that anybody could buy, and perhaps surprisingly, or perhaps not surprisingly, because it's sort of ephemera, very, very few of these things survive. They've nearly all disappeared amongst the thousands that were probably sold, and maybe this is the only actual working one left in the country, restored and working.
When the flower garden was rediscovered, they had decades of neglect to contend with. Once the painstaking restoration was complete, the ingenuity of the original design was revealed. The glass houses were strategically placed on a southwest aspect, and the beds intentionally sloped to maximize the warmth of the early morning sun. It makes an ideal place to grow exotic fruits, a diligently arranged supply of salad vegetables, and crop after crop of flowers.
This'll do it. Lack of rain, I think.
Tom Petherick, the equivalent of the Victorian foreman, executes Philip's carefully drawn-up plans. But even with the best of intentions, plans can go awry.
Fill in the small ones.
Yeah,
fill in the gaps with small ones.
A
Yeah.
late spring frost killed off one of their peonies, so Tom is improvising. Helping him is Gillian Cartwright, who's responsible for cultivating the flowers.
That's going to look great. The bender. Up goes the bender.
Got to shelter in it when it rains. Or hide in it.
Well, we're putting up our teepee for sweet peas. We've got most of the sweet peas up. You can see them in that row of pea sticks. That's in the cut flower bed. But we lost a peony out of the peony row here, and so we've got to fill up with a nice little triangle to fill with sweet peas.
Is this all we've got, Tom?
Mm-hmm. Those are the Cupanis originals.
OK, let's just sting off, I think.
How many shoots are you choosing? 2, is it?
Just 2, yeah. Actually, we better...
Pinch out the weaker shoots.
That's right.
Choose 2, maybe?
Yeah. Apparently about 400 WI ladies coming today.
heard that.
Look around the garden.
I'll enjoy that. The flowers grown in here would have gone into the house on request, almost entirely, and year round as well. So early spring bulbs all through summer. We're going to try and get 3 crops in this year if we can, depending on the weather.
We've got a piece of ground which is effectively divided into half by the east-west path. On the north side of it, we've planted the early crop, and we're exactly mirroring it on the other side now with our main crop sowing. The whole thing just runs through in a straight line, and that was part of the sort of Victorian system. And it was all done with precision. We're going to sow these annual cut flowers, Gillian. Start here inside the cleomes with the clarkias and the gadetias. This soil has been partially knocked down, so all I want you to do, please, is to rake it out, get it good and level. It's already beginning to dry, which I'm quite surprised about, but nevertheless it is coming down nicely. Looking at that, it's difficult to believe that it was been pouring with rain for 2 days, isn't it?
Yeah, looking really good. Be nice and warm as well when we get going.
Mind you, I suppose a June sun coming out on this, it's not surprising.
Yeah.
But it is a tribute to the people who produced this soil over 200 or 300 years, isn't it? That we can actually treat it this way. There's one thing that has occurred to me that I haven't done anything about, and I'm not going to, and that's the question of whether we should put down any base fertiliser or something. But this piece of land's been double dug. It's had a bit of base fertiliser in the winter, so
Yeah, it should be fine. The other
I don't think we're going to bother with that.
And they're doing okay, so.
That's really making... God, I can't believe the progress we're making with it.
Perfect for seed sowing.
It's almost television presenter's soil, isn't it? It is television presenter's soil, not almost.
It certainly is.
All the seeds that we're using for the varieties of annual cut flowers are virtually all period correct. And it's amazing, isn't it, that nowadays you can still get varieties of Clarkia and Godetia and Nigella that you could 100 years ago. The difference between the varieties that would have been grown 100 years ago and the ones that you might have grown today commercially are simply a question of size, how tall they are. And these old varieties are much, much taller. And in many ways, I think, prettier and that much more enjoyable for it. They're aesthetically, to me, more pleasing. Whether there are any lessons to be learned from the way the Victorians did it in today's conditions is difficult to say, except that by demonstrating what we're doing now may bring back to people the ideas of how you could extend the season and the variety that you could achieve as a result of that. As if you were growing cut flowers at home, it would be possible to have a succession of different sorts of flowers. If you only had the one season when they were flowering, let's say in late June and July, and then they were finished, you wouldn't be very popular in the house because probably people would be coming down here in August, September. So you'd need to have the flowers. So you've got to have this succession of cropping. So perhaps we could think back to those sort of things today and realise what we've forgotten.
At Norwich Union, the feeling we get when our investments pay off, we share with millions of customers every day. Protect your future with the pension and investment strength of Norwich Union. Norwich Union, no one protects more.
4 centimeters. Believe me, it can make a lot of difference.
With 4 centimeters extra lateral suspension track, for example,
You get superb handling and impeccable road manners. So you see, with suspension geometry, as with so much in life, size matters.
It's what you do with it that counts.
Back in the vegetable garden, the salad red and salad blue potatoes are nearly ready for harvesting. Tom and Mike, an under gardener, are assessing if they need to be sprayed with Bordeaux mixture, a chemical that combats potato blight.
Snowdrop and salad red, that got ridged up. We shouldn't have done that. And the rest of the last 3 are salads.
Yeah.
So Lord Rosebery,
Yeah.
King Edward,
Yeah.
and Edsel Blue is all coming out this week.
Yeah, so there's no point of doing them, is there?
Mate, Mike, you want to start on the end.
Start out this end and work in.
Start
eh?
on these salads and work in.
Yeah, right.
So the end 3 can... Oh, hell, look at
Yeah.
this. We've got to do this week, haven't we?
Yes, we certainly have, haven't we?
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
We're practicing systems that were used in late Victorian, early Edwardian times. I would prefer to use organic systems, but